Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with footage from the childhood of Henry Long, the film's protagonist. Henry accidentally hurt himself, as all children do at that age. He would get burned or fall on the ground, but there is one thing that made him different from others. He suffers from congenital insensitivity to pain. It is a condition that inhibits the ability to perceive physical pain. From birth, affected individuals never feel pain in any part of the body when injured. His parents tried to protect him, so he often found himself being alone so he would not risk injury. Many years pass, and we see Henry living in his own apartment that he has built in a kind of laboratory. He lives a monotonous and unsociable life. When the delivery guy arrives, he takes his food without saying goodbye, and before eating, he inserts ice cubes inside so as not to burn himself. Later, while experimenting on rats, Henry explains what pain is, which is a signal from the nervous system indicating that something is wrong. It is an unpleasant sensation, such as a stinging, tingling, burning, or pain that can be sharp or dull. In short, what he cannot feel. He has been trying for many years to find a cure for this disease, to cure himself and others suffering from the same diagnosis. In fact, he uses rats to experiment with his treatments, but so far, he has had no results. Henry travels to the store, where he switches the labels of one product with the price of another, in order to save money. The guy approaches the cashier, and sees that he is obviously struggling with some sort of health issue just by looking at him. Therefore, in order to divert his attention, he tells him what he needs to do in order to treat his diagnosis, which causes the other man to be shocked. Henry gets a message from someone waiting for him when he gets back to his house from a drug dealer. The truth is that Henry does not have a genuine job, so in order to make ends meet, he manufactures and distributes illegal substances. Because he is so brilliant in chemistry and science, he can make a lot of money with very little effort. Henry informs the dealer that he doesn't have time for such things, and that he should move to the next level, and start selling more profitable products instead. However, the dealer proposes that he do so. After taking the money, he walks away. Henry is on his way home when he gets coffee spilled on him, by an unsuspecting passenger on the metro. At first, Henry is oblivious to the agony, but when the girl begins to apologize, he is perplexed, because he did not react to the discomfort that he was feeling. As soon as Henry got off the train, the girl, who introduced herself as Shawnee, approached him to offer her further apologies, and requests some aspirin. Instead of giving her aspirin, he provides her the chemical that he sells to the drug dealer, which is nothing more than a painkiller. He also assures her that she has nothing to worry about. Henry takes the coffee that she left behind on the bench, as a reminder of the time he spent with her after she had left. Henry continues to keep his regular doctor's appointment the next day. While waiting for him to return, he notices a woman in the corridor, and instantly grasps the nature of the illness she is suffering from. When he finally meets the doctor, he informs the physician about the lady's prognosis. The physician agrees with Henry's assessment, but is unimpressed because he is already familiar with Henry's ability. When he tells the doctor about his experiments, the doctor does not believe him. In fact, he claims that the unfortunate rats only suffer as a result of his actions. Henry encounters Dr. Stephen Andrews as he goes outside, and Dr. Andrews informs Henry about a brand new scientific program that has the potential to assist thousands of youngsters. Henry's condition is extremely unusual, and Dr. Andrews is aware of the diagnosis. Henry does not experience any pain, and he is in excellent physical health. He can't carry out the studies without him, but Henry isn't interested, and claims he's too busy to participate. Back home, he continues to work on his experiments, and in the process, receives a phone call from Dr. Andrews' assistant. Henry answers but hangs up shortly after, saying he does not have time. Henry discovers that to create the cure for his diagnosis, he needs a certain preparation that is banned in the States. So, Henry immediately returns to the doctor, and asks him to get the substance he needs. The doctor acknowledges that the idea is interesting, but is unable to procure such a substance. He tells him that he should ask a pharmaceutical company, but Henry knows that no such company would listen to him. Henry goes to his dealer, and asks him if he can procure the substance he needs, but the guy tells him no. As a last resort, Henry goes to Dr. Andrews, and tells him that he will participate in his program with one condition: he must procure him the banned substance he needs. He also asks him that after they finish the work, they can never contact him again. Dr. Andrews immediately agrees, and they get right to work. The doctors take Henry's blood test and begin to study him. Henry often passes by the bar where Shawnee works, but he cannot find the courage to go in and say hello. One day, while left alone with Dr. Andrews, the latter reveals his diagnosis, and says that they are very much alike. They suffer from rare diseases, and tell him how bad it is to feel different from others. One evening Henry decides to enter the bar where Shawnee works, and sits at a table. The woman immediately recognizes him and brings him coffee, and sits with him. They start talking, and to fill the awkward silence, Henry talks about the chemicals in the water like a geek. The woman quickly realizes that Henry is a weirdo, but decides to give him a chance, and leaves him her number. During the next meeting with Dr. Andrews, Henry asks for the substances he requested as payment. Doctor gives them to him, and says that he understands what he has on his chin and offers his help, but Henry refuses it. When he returns home that evening, he immediately sets to work on his treatment. In the process, he receives a message from the dealer, and remembers Shawnee's cell phone number. Henry calls her and decides to go see her. The woman is in a greenhouse watering plants. Shawnee says she used to come here as a child, to relax and relieve stress. After they talk for a while, Henry says he has to go back to his lab to work. She offers to give him a ride on a motorcycle, but he is too scared and refuses, and he rides the subway home. He continues to work on his treatment, but then decides to ask Dr. Andrews for help. They perform an extremely painful procedure. Nevertheless, Henry feels nothing, and goes home with a head wound. He lies on the bed and falls asleep, saddened. The next morning the dealer calls him, and Henry tells him that he will come to him in a couple of days. Later, Henry goes to his trusted doctor to ask for help in his search for the cure, interrupting him. Annoyed, the doctor says his plan has very little chance of success, and besides, he does not have the materials to do it. But then Henry reveals that he has been collaborating with Dr. Andrews, to which he is shocked. The fact is that the doctor and Andrews split up more than 20 years ago, following a science experiment gone wrong. They were working together on something that was supposed to be the discovery of the century, but something did not go according to plan, and 5 people died. The doctor tells him that he must stay away from Andrews, as he is dangerous, and nothing can stop him if he has put something into his head. In the evening, Henry goes to his dealer, and gives the stuff to him to sell. The guy talks to him again about the opportunity to sell more stuff, but Henry tells him he wants nothing more to do with dirty business. In the meantime, Shawnee finishes her work day, and when she goes outside, she meets Henry, who proposes to take her for a ride on his motorcycle. They have a great time on the motorcycle, and then stop to talk near a river. At that moment, Henry confesses to her that he cannot feel pain. He asks her if he should live with it or find a cure. Shawnee tells him that life is short, and he should do what makes him happy. Henry gives her a tour of his laboratory. He shows her the rats and talks about his experiments. Suddenly Shawnee kisses him, and from that evening, the two begin to spend more and more time together. Henry is in love, and by now, his life has taken on colors. He even ignores the constant messages from the dealer. One day Henry meets Dr. Andrews, who encourages him to continue working on the cure, obviously because he has his own interests, to sell the cure worldwide. Nevertheless, Henry does not seem interested. One evening the couple has a date in a bar. Shortly afterwards, an old friend of Shawnee arrives and insults the girl. Henry tries to defend her, but the others beat him up. He gets up agitated and leaves while Shawnee tries to stop him. Henry reaches the laboratory and starts throwing things left and right. Shawnee calls him, but he hangs up. Soon after, while feeding the rats, he notices something on the blackboard. Thereafter he continues to work on his cure, and the next day, goes to Dr. Andrews to tell him they need to do a genetics test. It turns out that Henry is on the right track, and the cure no longer seems like something imaginary. One evening while Henry is working, Shawnee enters the lab and tries to talk to him. Henry tells her that he regrets having an affair, and wants her to leave. So, Shawnee leaves with tears in her eyes. The next day Henry goes to Dr. Andrews to ask for a sample of his cure, which by now seems ready. The doctor does not want to give it to him, but Henry notices the lab keys and steals them. That night he breaks inside, and steals a sample of the cure. He initially plans to try it directly on himself, but then does the logical thing, and goes home to test it on rats. In the meantime, Henry's physician pays him a visit and learns about his cure. However, the physician claims that it is all a lie, and that he has no evidence that it is effective. He claims that by doing it himself, he puts himself in danger, because there is a chance that it will not end well. Henry is not interested in listening to what he has to say, and asks him to leave. That same evening, he makes his way past the bar where Shawnee works, but he does not muster up the nerve to enter. He travels to Dr. Andrews in order to return the cure, explaining that he does not want to use it, because he is afraid it will end his life. He realizes that Dr. Andrews wanted him to steal the cure, so that he would not be involved in any way if he died, and the doctor tells him that he cannot mollify so easily. Henry finally walks away from the laboratory, handing the cure over. When Shawnee goes to Henry's apartment one day, she is surprised to find that Henry has moved out. When she gets back from riding her bike, she discovers a letter from Henry waiting for her. He gave the same letter to his reliable physician, in which he reveals that he has gone to a medical center, where he would help children. Henry claims that he has a clear understanding of his path, and that he is content with it. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.